Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Makoto Uchiha is obsessed with Naruto? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Sabaku Ookami for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Makoto hummed lightly as she headed back home after having gone shopping for the night's dinner, as she always did. It allowed out of the house and district. She also got to mingle with others besides her clan and was always refreshing after suffering through a mind-numbing day of clan politics, cleaning and her usual daily life. She'd take talking to the villagers over her clan any day of the week. Oddly enough though, her night was relatively quiet. Normally, there was a black and orange blur causes minor cause around the shopping district, usually by splashing paint on a store or its owner or getting chased by shinobi for one reason or another. And yet, none of that happened this time around. Makoto looked off to the side, noticing the light hitting something hanging from a tree. Once she got a good look at it, and then she saw Uzumaki Naruto, hung from the tree with a top around his neck. She walked over to him, pulling one of a few kunai she kept hidden in her clothing out and throwing it at the rope. It struck home, slicing through the rope, causing the boy to fall down into her arm as she managed to catch him with one arm and set him on the ground along with her groceries. Who hangs a child in the middle of a normally populated street? Never mind, she thought, correcting herself, knowing the villagers' outlook toward the blonde boy. She knelt down and removed the rope from around his neck and checked to see if he was breathing and if his heart was still beating. They weren't. I took basic first aid and CPR. But how long has he been up there? She thought as started CPR on the boy. Come on, don't be difficult, she thought as she bent over and breathed air into his lungs before pressing down on his chest again and repeating the process. After a few more tries, Naruto started breathing again, and she sighed as she watched his chest rise and fall. I already have to listen to Kushina bitch about abandoning her son. I don't think I want to have had to listen to her bitch about him dying as well, she thought as she considered the likely action her best friend. Every time she saw him or heard his name, the thought of abandoning him would spark in her mind briefly, but it faded just as quickly. If anyone had questioned her about it, they'd probably consider her strange or possibly a monster for not caring about her best friend's son, or if he died. Probably not Konoha though, they seemed out to kill the boy more than anything else. The fact was though, she had never been able to feel emotions. It was impossible for her to be sad or anything about what happened to Naruto, or if it had been her own children for that matter. It had always been that way, from the day she was born. It wasn't as bad as it sounded though. She knew she was broken, but she didn't care. It was normal for her. It was easy for her to blend in, to pretend around other people, to pretend to be normal, but inside, she felt nothing. She looked at the now breathing, sleeping boy and frowned. Can't take him to the hospital. I've heard the rumors that they just kick him out. I guess I can take him to a safe house since I don't know where he lives, she thought as she gently picked him up, slinging him over her shoulder before picking up her groceries and heading to a nearby safe house. Konoha. Uchiha safe house. An hour later. Makoto sighed quietly as she cleaned up the safe house. It was dusty, dirty, and likely had not seen a soul since now. Still though, it served its purpose. Naruto was lying in a bed, still unconscious but resting now and possibly not suffering any problems from having been hung for who knows how long. Fortunately, since the safe house fell into such disuse that no one in the clan remembered it, and if they did, would never consider checking it for her when Fugaku eventually sent out a few clansmen to find her since she wasn't going home anytime soon. Her sons and husband would live as she cared for the boy. Since she went through with her decision, she'd need a creditable excuse for the man. She spent the next couple of hours, cleaning the place up and making it remotely livable, checking on Naruto every 10 minutes as well. Last thing she needed was to find him dead. After cleaning, she went about cooking food with the groceries she bought earlier. She was getting hungry, and if Naruto woke up, he might be as well. Either way, she wouldn't let him leave tonight at the very least if he woke up. She didn't want her alibi disappearing into the night, and have to deal with an irritable husband. If anything, Naruto was hard to catch. His stamina and quickness was nothing to laugh at, especially when the boy outran Umbu. Makoto opened the door to check on Naruto again, and heard a sobbing sound as she opened it. She looked inside and saw the blonde boy crying in the bed she placed him. She walked over to him. Sure, it's okay Naruto. Don't cry, it's okay, she said, trying to comfort the boy as she usually comforted her son, Sasuke. It almost always worked. And no, it isn't. I'm still alive, he replied in between his crying, and Makoto froze when she heard his words. No one hung him? He hung himself? Oh, she thought simply as she took in the information. The boy had always been a smiling ball of cheer that suicide seemed impossible when you looked at him, but hearing it straight from his mouth was strange. Maybe he was just as broken as her. Makoto mentally shrugged at the thought. At least she could relate to him in a small way, being broken as well. But that wasn't the problem. She needed to stop the crying from him, for a lot of reasons. What do you mean? It should be a good thing you're alive, Naruto. You shouldn't be crying about it, said Makoto, deciding to try and get the boy out of his current mindset, at least for the moment. Every morning I wish Mikasa-san had drowned me when I was born, replied Naruto, still lying on the bed, his arm covering his eyes, and Makoto listened quietly. Then I make my way through the village, heading to the forest with the giant animals, the only place in this hell where a demon like me feels at home. He added as his sobbing had disappeared as he continued to speak. Sometimes people yell monster, animal, demon, and then someone screams kill yourself, and it takes me a moment to realize the voice is mine. He continued as he started crying again. By then I've made it to the forest, and I've got a rope around my neck before I think about it. I hang from it, and I pray to whatever being there is that I will die. But then I wake up, usually in my bed. I lay there and I cry because I'm alive for another day. Makoto frowned as she felt something. She had been feeling it for some time. It wasn't anything physical, as it seemed to originate from the blonde, and the only conclusion caused her eyes to widen slightly as she realized that it was the first time she'd felt an emotion. She couldn't put it into a word, but as she stared at Naruto she felt a strong desire. A longing, a yearning, a craving. He was the cause, and she was addicted to the way he made her feel. She didn't care about anything else anymore. Makoto rubbed his head gently. Somehow it stopped him from crying. Then she hugged him, surprising him immensely, and replied, "Don't be that way, Naruto-kun. I know it's late, maybe too late, but how would you like if I took care of you? Loved you and all of that?" He would agree, she knew he would. If he didn't, she'd try harder to get him to remain close to her. She wouldn't let him go, not after the feelings he invoked in her. "But you're Sasuke's Kasan," said Naruto, as he knew who she was, at least vaguely, having seen Sasuke with her often, and he was smart enough to connect the dots. Makoto shook her head as she hugged him once more, afraid that he might jump out of the bed and leave. "That doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you promise me that you stay with me and won't hurt yourself again, ever. Do that and I'll make sure you're happy. Please, I can't just let you leave otherwise," she added mentally, as she knew if she allowed him to leave, she'd likely never see him alive again, and she'd rather kill him before letting that happen. Naruto didn't know what to do, as no one ever acted this way around or to him. No one ever hugged him or begged him about anything. He mentally shrugged. He had nothing to lose if he did what she wanted, so even if she was lying, his life couldn't get any worse. Alright, I am," promised Sasuke's mom. "I won't do it again," he said, confused about everything and not sure what to do. "Makoto," she replied gently as she pulled back from him a little bit. "My name is Makoto, Naruto-kun. You can call me whatever you want, though," she added before kissing him gently, surprising the blonde immensely at the act before she passed out, holding on to him with a smile on her face. "Mikoto-san?" questioned Naruto as she stopped moving and talking, though she was still holding on to him. He wasn't complaining, but he was curious about what just happened to her, or rather why she just kissed him. He moved his head around and got a look at her face, and saw she had fallen asleep. "Oh, I guess a nap's okay," he thought, a bit surprised to find her eyes closed and sleeping. He still didn't know what to make of her or any of this, but he decided to go to sleep as well, seeing he wasn't getting her off him. Morning. Makoto stirred in bed for a little bit before opening her eyes groggily and realized she wasn't in her usual bed. Then everything that happened the night before popped into her head, causing to sit up quickly and looked around for Naruto. But he wasn't anywhere in the safe house, which was easy to see given it was simply a shack with a few utilities in it. Where'd he go, she thought as she stood up from the bed and looked to see if he at least left a note or some clue or anything. She opened the door, walked outside, and spotted him a good 10 feet away from the shack, sitting next to a small fire, as he was cooking something by the smell of it. Makoto walked over to the oblivious blonde boy as he continued with his task and then hugged him from behind. She had felt him tense up immediately, but after he looked behind him, seeing her, he relaxed. Hello, Mikoto-san, he said, looking unsure about what to do. Makoto felt like something stabbed her, seeing him react the way he did. It was as if he was afraid he'd say or do something that would cause her to attack him, or that he truly didn't know how to interact with people beyond pranking them, or yelling about being Hokage. Something he obvious got him from mother, she thought, as Kushina had done the same declaration dozens of times before. Naruto-kun, don't be formal. I won't bite you, she added as she released him and moved to sit next to him. She had all the time in the world for the little blonde, especially if talking to him and spending time with the boy was going to end up like this. Much, she added coyly before giggling as Naruto had a telltale sign of fear about him. So what are you doing? Asked Makoto, looking over at the fire with it having cooking meat on it, and she noted a few pieces of animal skin nearby as well. He knows how to skin animals decently, he can start a fire probably well enough and knows how to cook with a campfire, she thought, as on one hand, it was impressive for an 8-year-old to know either of those things, let alone being able to skin animals as well as he did. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to be able to dry the skin and likely sell it for a reasonable price. Cooking some animals I found for breakfast, decided to wake you up when they were done, replied Naruto quietly and looking away as if he was uncomfortable talking to her. Which she understood he probably was, and he had a right to be if she had to be honest. The villagers ignored him, kicked him out of shops or beat the poor boy, and then there was the blonde's birthday where a mob would form to hunt him down, but all of that would end. One way or another. She'd ensure it would. Makoto smiled as she ruffled his hair a bit. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Since you seem quite good at this, could I ask what you do with the animal's skin? She asked curiously, wondering what exactly he did with it. I kind of just bury it, replied Naruto, not knowing what else to do with the skin. He couldn't eat it. He tried, and it took him a couple days to get all the fur out of his mouth. That made sense to Makoto. He wouldn't know what to do with it, and no one probably taught him how to skin to start with, let alone how to dry the skin to sell it, though now that she thought of it, would anyone buy it from him? The villagers, probably not, but a visiting merchant was a possibility depending on how well the skin was preserved. How about I show you how to dry it? If you can dry it and gather enough of it, you'd be able to make a bit of money if you sell it to a merchant visiting Konoha, said Makoto, finding it helpful to the boy, if he wanted to learn it. It wasn't a skill a shinobi normally learned, but what's a D-rank mission if you don't learn something from it? She knew a lot of particularly useless skills on her missions that shinobi deemed worthless, though she never did. Sure, I guess, replied Naruto, looking at her, the interest in his eyes obvious to her. But after breakfast? He added, and she agreed. It would be best not to let the meat go cold or bad. After they ate, Makoto started gathering the things she and Naruto would need to dry the skins, with a little extra for any mistakes Naruto would likely do. Then she spent the next few hours showing him how to do it. A few hours later, Naruto walked alongside Makoto carrying the furs that they dried. He didn't know he could sell them. It was better than attempting to eat them or burying them. Though he wasn't sure what he'd do with the money even if he did sell them, since only 3 stores actually let him in, and 2 of them made him pay twice the amount. He also doubted that Ichiraku would want them. They stopped at a gathering of people. One of them walked over after seeing them, and Naruto hid behind Makoto, knowing what was likely to happen. Makoto-sama, a pleasure to see you this morning. May I ask what you require to come here in person? Asked the man, giving the Uchiha matriarch his undivided attention and paying little heed to the blonde boy hiding behind her skirt. Makoto smiled softly at the man's words, as hollow as they were. Having been the heiress to the Uchiha clan, she was used to the false praise and bootlicking from merchants, counselors, elders, and dozens of other people. She also knew how to manipulate them as well. She had learned to do that instead of being manipulated herself, though she tried not to manipulate others. She'd seen it come back to bite someone in the ass before. Good morning. As for why I'm here, she trailed off before looking down at her legs at Naruto poking part of his head out from behind her to watch cautiously. My little spiral and I had a bit of a learning exercise this morning, and I wanted to get an expert's opinion on these furs and, if possible, sell them as well. She continued as she looked back to the merchant as she gently nudged Naruto out of his hiding spot. She liked her little nickname for him. It was a bit long, but being an Uzumaki and their clan symbol being a spiral, it fit in her opinion, and if she wanted to get him to trust her and willingly be around her, then she'd have to start with his clan and eventually telling him everything that she knew. His clan and his parents. But that would need to wait, at least a little bit, since he probably didn't trust her very much and the knowledge was delicate to say the least. She didn't need the Hokage breathing down her neck after all, he'd get in the way of her being around her little spiral. "I can look at them," said the man before looking down at Naruto and the furs in his arms that he held up to him. "Thank you," he added before picking one of the furs up. Then he started feeling it, sniffing it, and eyeing it closely. After a few minutes he looked at Makoto and said, "You used jutsu to dry them, didn't you?" Makoto's sweat dropped and nodded. It was something that was taboo amongst the merchants. A lot of them would not buy or sell goods created by jutsu since it could cause issues amongst them and the economy of the elemental nations in general. I wanted to show him how it was done, but I was a little impatient, Kura-san, she said, having wanted to make the blonde happy instead of waiting the usual amount of time it would take. Still, it was good to get an opinion anyways. Kuru chuckled before handing the fur back to Naruto and replied, "The drying is rough, a bit too dry from a katan jutsu. Though, I felt the feeling of normal drying barely, but the jutsu ruined the feel in the end. Unfortunately you used jutsu so I can't buy it, Mikoto-sama. You and the young boy did pretty well in drying the skins, even using a jutsu. It was used masterfully, almost couldn't tell. If you have a bit more patience next time then I'll be happy to buy them from you too." "Well, it was nice to get your opinion on it nonetheless," said Makoto, happy it could be a source of income her blonde obsession, but she clearly saw Naruto's disappointment as he stared at the skins in his arms sadly, causing her to panic a little. "I know you can't buy them and resell them, but could I ask if you could have something made from them?" she asked, having an idea come to mind and seeing it as a good idea for the blonde to receive something for his hard work. Kura nodded. "While rough they could be used to create clothing of some kind." "That I can, though you'll have to wait a couple weeks. I'm a good merchant, but my needlework is horrendous." "What do you want them turned into, Mikoto-sama?" he asked, wondering what the woman had in mind. Makoto tilted her head as she gave it some thought as she looked at Naruto, then got an idea and whispered it into Kura's ears so she could leave it as a surprise for the blonde. "That will be difficult, but I'm willing to give such a unique idea a try," he stated before reaching down and taking the skins from Naruto. "You can pay for this transaction when it's finished, Mikoto-sama, on the chance that it might not work out, and I'd rather you didn't pay for a finished product when I'm not even sure it'll work out as intended." Makoto nodded as she understood his words. She was surprised though. She had expected him to want the payment up front, and in advance she liked this surprise. "Then I'll pay you when you've finished with it, Kura-san. Now on to another piece of business. Could I look through your wares if it isn't too early in the morning?" she asked as she wasn't done with the merchant just yet, or would be any time soon. Her little spiral was not doing without any longer. "It's never too early to do business, Mikoto-sama," stated Kuru, beaming with the pride that only a merchant could have when doing business. It was better than watching Guy use his genjutsu with his smaller version, but not something she would get used to. 2 hours later. Makoto smiled as for the past 2 hours Naruto had been looking through the various things that Kuru had for sale. He had been skittish at first when they walked to the man's store in the village, and he wasn't willing to get anything and she expected that of him. It took a lot of convincing for her to assure him that it was alright since she was going to start taking care of him, though he was clearly still uncomfortable and didn't pick anything, though he did look interested in a few things. How bad is it for him when he's afraid to even get help from someone else, she thought, frowning as she was starting to feel something else. It led to dark thoughts, and from the description of what she was experiencing, she deduced that she was feeling anger. Makoto felt angry toward Konoha for bringing her adorable little spiral to commit suicide, and would dare make him scared to receive help, especially from her. They'd pay, she just had to think of a way to make them all pay. She looked toward the entrance of the shop, hearing the door open, and saw the usual clerk walk inside, likely to start her day, and she looked surprised to see her boss, Kuru, herself and Naruto. "Kura-sama, this is a surprise," said the woman, closing the door behind her. "Is there a problem for you to be here so early?" she asked, and Makoto noticed she glanced at Naruto when she said problem, and her pleasant mood was ruined. It took all her control not to rush over to the woman and bash her head in for calling her Naruto a problem. "None at all. Makoto-sama and her little friend wanted me to appraise something and then asked if they could do a bit of shopping." "Just do what you normally do and don't mind us," answered Kuru, standing next to Makoto as they both continued to watch. Naruto looked at various things. Normally it was boring, but the two had started making a private game out of his actions and the fact that after Makoto said it was fine if he wanted anything, The blonde boy had become more interested in looking through the store than before, but still was reluctant to actually grab for anything. Naruto-kun, how about we go and do a few other things, and if you change your mind, we can always return, said Makoto, deciding to cut short the little shopping trip since the blonde wasn't likely to ask for anything and the clerk was souring the store with her presence and discreet glare she was giving her little spiral. She's added to the list, thought Makoto icily as she had special plans for people on that particular list. Okay, Miko, replied Naruto before walking over to her, then standing next to her, partially trying to hide himself from both Kuru and the clerk. Makoto smiled, almost beaming at his shortening of her name. It wasn't much, but it at least showed he trusted her a tiny bit. She just wanted to hug him and never let go, but that would look at in the middle of the store with people who obviously knew or could figure out that they weren't that close yet. We'll be back another time, Kuru, probably when Naruto isn't so shy about shopping, said Makoto to the merchant, who chuckled in response and nodded. Or when you finish that little thing I asked of earlier. No worries, Makoto-sama. It was a pleasure to have you visit my establishment, replied Kuru politely as he bowed politely to her. Makoto and Naruto left the store, but didn't make it very far as two Uchiha clan members blocked their path. Sooner than I'd have liked, she thought, knowing that the clan and her husband were already looking for her. She clicked her tongue in annoyance. These pricks were interrupting her Naruto time. This reminds me of when I was younger, she added mentally, knowing she had very little freedom to leave the Uchiha district, and it apparently still held true. Do you need something? Asked Makoto, looking at them calmly as she felt Naruto grab her hand and hiding behind her. She could feel him huddle against her, causing her to frown as she stared at the two clansmen. Fugaku-sama has been worried about you since you never returned last night, Makoto-sama. He's had the entire clan searching for you, and he's considered going to the Hokage if you prove to be not in the village, stated one of the men seriously before looking at Naruto, then continuing. Please refrain from degre. He never finished his sentence, as a thin red line appeared on his cheek. Finish that sentence and I'll rip your throat out, stated Makoto coldly as she narrowed her eyes at them, holding a kunai in her hand in a discreet manner as to not draw attention from civilians around them, going about their day. I'll return when I feel like it. That's what you will tell Fugaku when you return. If he doesn't like it, I'll divorce him, and you two know what that means, right? She asked, giving a smile, though the two knew it promised pain if her question was answered wrong. Why you become the head of the clan? Answered one of the two clansmen, not sure about his answer, but having a general idea of how the clan head was decided when the primary heir was female. From what he knew, Fugaku only held power in the clan because Makoto didn't want it, but she could easily take it from him, married or divorced. Yes, replied Makoto, still smiling. Now run along and never badmouth my little spiral, ever again, she added seriously before shooing them off with a gesture, and they left immediately. She put her kunai away and brought Naruto out his hiding spot behind her. It's all right, Naruto-kun. You don't have to worry about them, she said, hugging him gently. Don't you have to go home? Questioned Naruto, wondering why she didn't go with them. He half expected it. Nothing good happened for very long, and he was admittedly enjoying Makoto's company, though he wasn't sure what to make of it. Makoto knelt down and pressed her forehead against his. She smiled at him and replied, Nope. I'm going to spend time with you, and then I have a bit of a surprise for you later. I just know you'll love it. Well, she wasn't completely sure, but he'd probably be hard-pressed to dislike the idea she had in mind. Though if he didn't like it, she was a patient person. So what do you want to do next? She asked, wondering what her blonde would want to do, since she had nothing coming to mind. I have to go to the academy soon, answered Naruto, sighing as he shrugged. So how about there? He questioned, not sure if she'd want to walk all the way there with him. Sure, chimed the older woman, nodding with a smile on her face. They'd better not treat him badly, she thought as she stood up and started walking Naruto to the academy. Uchiha District, an hour later. Makoto walked into her home after dropping her little spiral off. It was quiet, almost empty, like always, but it did little to dampen her mood after spending time with Naruto. She had things to do, plans to finish before Naruto got out of the academy, and she had little time to do all of them. And just where have you been all night and morning? Came the voice of her husband, causing her to turn to its source, seeing the usual frown and stoic Fugaku standing in the doorway to a room. Makoto raised an eyebrow and asked, When should it concern you where I go? It was honest. This kind of conversation was a long time coming. Fugaku had always been controlling of her, and the only reason she listened to him was because she didn't want to waste time when she returned home and he scolded her. "I'm your husband. It concerns me a great deal where my wife would be and with what she spends her time with," stated Fugaku seriously as he narrowed his eyes at her. "The two that found you told me who you were with and your threat. Do you think the elders would allow you to remove me as head of the clan?" "They wouldn't have a choice," answered Makoto truthfully as she knew that the elders were powerless in the end. They held an illusion of power, but that's all that it was. An illusion. The elders existed to provide advice and wisdom, not to run the clan itself. They held little power at the end of the day. Being the heiress required her to learn these details and more. She knew more about how her clan, and the others in Konoha were run than her husband did. "Now is there anything useful you want to say?" "I have things to prepare for my little spiral." "You know what he told us, stay away from the Kyubi Jinchuriki. Besides, the boy has the Hokage's attention and the clan doesn't need that while we're planning our coup," said Fugaku, not willing to allow his wife to ruin all of the clan's planning for whatever her reason was. Oh right, they were planning something that stupid, thought Makoto, having completely forgot about what her husband and the elders were planning with the clan. A few seconds later, a thought sparked in her mind, causing her to smile viciously, causing Fugaku to frown, having never seen his wife smile before. He insulted Naruto-kun, and with the coup that the Hokage likely knows about, I can get rid of this problem and nothing will keep Naruto from me, she thought before simply walking out. She would deal with him later. She had things to do and very little of it required her to be at her home. She wanted a change of clothes, but a short trip to a clothing store could fix that just as quickly, possibly quicker. Naruto frowned as he sat on the swing outside of the academy. He had nothing better to do. If he was honest, he did expect Makoto to be waiting outside the academy when it was over, but at the same time he knew that she wouldn't waste her time with him. No one ever did. "Naruto-kun, what are you doing?" asked a familiar feminine voice, causing Naruto to look at its source and saw it was Makoto, who was out of her long skirt, shirt, and apron. She was now wearing black shinobi pants, heeled sandals, and a black halter top. "Just sitting," answered Naruto truthfully, though quite surprised that she even came. It was a happy surprise though. Makoto smiled kindly as she brushed her hand through his hair gently. "I prepared a few things for us to do, but is the Ka-san, why are you with the dobe?" stated a familiar voice, causing Naruto to grimace, knowing who it was, and just didn't want to fight with the brat. Especially not in front of Makoto. He didn't want to anger her if he started a fight with her son after all. Makoto looked over at her son and looked at him. "Why I'm with him isn't your concern, Sochi. Shouldn't you be heading home before Itachi heads off with his squad? If you're quick enough, he might spare a few minutes to help train you." If anything could get rid of this sickening piece of shit that was her son, it was bringing up her elder son. It took all her power to restrain herself from lashing out and striking Sasuke at insulting her little spiral. How dare he, she thought irritably, wanting to be rid of the little shit quickly. "Let's go home together and leave the los," he didn't finish as a fist hit him square in the mouth, sending him onto the ground, causing him to scream out in pain. Makoto wiped the blood and saliva off her hand onto her pants before picking up the crying body of her son. "Insult Naruto-kun again and I'll kill you. I don't remember raising an arrogant little shit copy of Fugaku. I brought you into this world, Sochi-kun, and I will take you out of it if you can't be nice to Naruto-kun. Do you understand me?" she stated icily as her stared into her son's eyes with her own narrowed and filled with venom. "Do you?" she growled angrily after not receiving an answer from Sasuke after several seconds. "Why yes," stammered the boy before he was dropped onto the ground. "Then go home, have someone look at your mouth and do whatever you want afterward," said Makoto in a more kind tone as her entire attitude changed. She turned to Naruto. "Now, as I was saying, Naruto-kun, is there anywhere you'd like to go before we go to the things I prepared?" she asked, looking at his cute shocked face. "Look at that face, it's so cute," she thought happily, wanting nothing more than to grab him and hug him to death. But if she just hugged him out of nowhere or showered him too much with her love, he'd run away. It wasn't his fault, it was Konoha's fault. The stupid people in it caused him to be wary and scared of others, so she didn't mind taking baby steps. Not really," replied Naruto, staring at her in shock at the woman who just hit, threatened, and essentially chased off her son for him. He wasn't sure how to feel about it. On one hand, he was happy that Makoto would stay with him, but at the same time he felt a bit bad about Sasuke getting beat by his own mother, even if he had it coming. Makoto smiled happily as she grabbed his hand, helping him off the swing. "Then let's get started. X. 2 hours later. For the past 2 hours, Makoto discovered a new emotion, one that Konoha helped bring to light for her. She discovered rage. Pure, unadulterated rage. Throughout the 2 hours, all of the preparations she had in place for her little spiral were for nothing. A few stores she picked out to get him some decent clothes, threw them out. Even her, the matriarch to the Uchiha clan, it was the same to some of the shinobi stores. They either threw them out or had the audacity to overcharge her for simple equipment, and in shit condition. The last straw came when she decided to salvage the entire thing by taking her little spiral to a small restaurant only for them to toss them out as well and threaten Naruto. Needless to say, she was not happy. They're all going to pay, each and every last one of them. They ruined my day with Naruto-kun, they made him sad and they ate up everything I wanted to do for him, she mentally shouted as she wanted to murder a lot of people. The anger boiled in her as the mere thought of those insects being so mean to her little spiral made her pissed off far beyond what she felt when her son insulted Naruto earlier. "Miko-chan, are you okay?" asked Naruto, seeing Makoto lost in her own thoughts with a deep frown. It was a rather normal day for him, everything considered. Though he only got threatened once, so it was better than normal in his opinion. He didn't like that Makoto seemed heartbroken every time they kicked them out of the stores. Well, he wasn't going to shop at those stores even if they let him in the future. It seemed fair seeing as she seemed so happy for whatever she had planned for them, and they made her upset. Makoto knelt down, smiled a bit and answered, "I'm fine, Naruto-kun." It was a blatant lie, but this was her problem to deal with, and she didn't want or need him to worry about it. On another level, she was thrilled. Her little spiral shortened her name, and used the Chan honorific. Her entire day was a failure, but at least something good happened. "We can eat at Ichiraku," said Naruto, knowing the one place he ate often and never chased him away. The place Kushina always ate, thought Makoto, knowing the place well enough. It seemed fitting that Kushina's son ate at the place that his mother loved. "Sure," replied Makoto, nodding as she grabbed his hand and walked to the ramen stand with him. It took them 10 minutes to walk to the stand, but they arrived and sat next to each other at the stand. "Ah, Naruto, oh, you brought a friend," said the stand owner, looking at the blonde and Makoto, surprised to find someone with him. "Who's your friend?" "Makoto-chan's great," praised Naruto, happily knowing she tried her best and that she seemed to actually enjoy being with him. It had only been a day, but he didn't feel like he had before meeting her. He hadn't felt the desire to kill himself since she appeared. Makoto smiled at Naruto and felt relieved at his praise, even if all her plans went to shit due to Konoha. "I'm not that great, Naruto-kun," she said as she knew she had yet to do anything substantial for her little spiral. The stand owner chuckled and said, "Well, what would you two like?" "2 miso and beef," stated Naruto happily, ready for food. "A large miso," replied Makoto, wondering where Naruto was going to be putting his food. She didn't think he'd be able to eat that much. The two ate their ramen once it came, and Makoto just listened as he talked to the stand owner and his daughter as they ate. She was okay sitting on the sidelines for the moment, as she was interested in seeing people who didn't treat Naruto badly. An hour later, Makoto stared at 2 towers of ramen bowls and found that her little spiral was indeed something special, especially his stomach from what she was seeing. She had never seen anyone eat as much as him. "I'm full," said Naruto, finishing another bowl and put it next to the 2 towers, effectively starting a third. "You look like you enjoyed yourself, Naruto-kun," stated Makoto happily as she enjoyed seeing him happy. "But what about the bill?" she questioned, deciding to tease him a bit, knowing that all the ramen he ate wouldn't make a cheap bill. How much is it?" asked Naruto, looking at Tuchi, whom she learned his name from Naruto's conversation with the man and his daughter. I am handed Naruto the bill, but before he could read it, Makoto plucked it from his hand. "Hey," he said, scowling at her. Makoto stuck her tongue out at him, then replied, "I'll pay for it, Naruto-kun. No need to worry, and don't aim, you just need to be quicker." She pulled out her wallet and paid the bill for the 2 of them. Unlike other women, she didn't see a point in using a purse. Even after retiring from being a shinobi, she didn't use one. All she ever used were pockets in her clothing, and it was quicker than digging through a purse, in her opinion. "Arigato, Miko-chan," said Naruto, blushing a little and looking off to the side, embarrassed. He found it a bit embarrassing that she was the one paying when he was the one who ate the most, not to mention he wasn't used to someone being as nice as she was being, and well, he liked seeing her smile. Naruto turned a darker shade of red when he felt Makoto hug him. "Ah, "It's okay, Naruto-kun. It's the least I could do after a bad day," replied Makoto, unable to resist the urge in her to hug her adorable spiral. "Now how about we go home?" she offered, deciding to bring out her final surprise for the blonde. Sure," stammered Naruto, still suffering under her hug. He liked it, but that didn't mean he was used to such a thing, especially when it just comes out of nowhere. "See ya later, Ne-chan, Gigi," added Naruto as he stood up with Makoto. "Goodbye, Naruto, and be careful," said Tsuchi as he went to work dismantling Naruto's towers of bulls. Makoto and Naruto walked away, and I asked, "Is Naruto going to be okay with her?" She was worried about the little bundle of sunshine. Sometimes people got close to him just to harm him, or to take advantage of him. Tsuchi realized that his daughter wouldn't know, then shook his head and answered, "That's right, you were little when Makoto-san was an active shinobi, so you wouldn't know. If she wanted to kill Naruto, the Hokage would likely find the boy lying dead in his bed, poisoned, with no idea who did it." What? How's that possible?" asked I, finding the information to be disturbing, at the very least. Tsuchi chuckled lightly as he set the bowls in the sink. "The rumors back then, they called her the Velvet Killer. It's okay as nicknames go, I suppose. Though the thing was that she is able to kill a large amount of people, without injury, and without them knowing until it's too late," he stated before pausing a moment to remember something from so long ago. "Let's see, when was it? Right. During the last Shinobi War. One day there was something shinobi eating here we're talking about." They were talking amongst themselves. I heard bits and pieces as I usually do, but they mentioned that a Uchiha Makoto single-handedly took out a IWA garrison, didn't even have an injury, and the best part was, she refused to be awarded for the feat, and even refused to be placed in Umbu. I think that was more shocking to the shinobi than the deed itself. He shrugged as he started cleaning the dishes, even as his daughter stared at him awestruck. Not that many people remember her being a kunoichi. Surprisingly, she retired, became a mother, and basically, as far as things went, disappeared for the most part. "And Naruto's safe around her?" questioned I. Am worried about the blonde boy immensely now. Tsuchi nodded. He had noticed the woman smiling at the blonde boy and being affectionate toward him, and quite sure that Naruto was safe. "I'd say he's safer than the Hokage is at any time," he replied, not exaggerating his words, as he had been around when all the rumors and talk of the young woman was rampant. "You should worry about anyone who does anything bad to Naruto ever. Also, can you bring the rest of the bowls over here? Then you can go home early while I finish cleaning these and closing the stand," he added, seeing that they weren't likely to get any more customers for the night. "Hi," muttered I, still in shock over what her father said. "Uchiha District. I'm going to live here?" asked Naruto, not sure if he liked the idea. His run-ins with Uchiha were less than enjoyable, except for Makoto. The police force always went along with the villagers' words, usually beating the hell out of him for something they say did, but he never did, and the last Uchiha he met that wasn't Makoto or Sasuke tried to roast him with a katon jutsu. Makoto raised an eyebrow as she looked at him. "You don't want to?" she asked, wondering why he'd have a problem with it when a thought occurred to her. Has he met other Uchiha? Did they hurt him? Why does everything and everyone keep getting in my way? She thought as she was getting tired of this village and of her clan. All they did was get in the way or harm her little spiral, and controlling her rage was not helping. "I'd rather not," he said, stepping back a little from the front entrance of the district. "How about the house we were in together last night?" she asked, seeing as the safe house was still a viable option. "You can live there if you like, you won't need to worry about a thing," she added, knowing it would be safe for him and probably a better living space than whatever he likely had now. Naruto tilted his head to the side, thinking about it. It was a nice place, and the apartment manager probably locked him out again. He was tired of going to the Hokage for help with that idiot. "Can I really? It's alright?" he asked, wanting to make sure it would be alright with her. His answer came in the form in another surprise hug, just as gentle as the previous one. "Of course it's alright, besides, you promised you'd stay with me, right?" stated Makoto as she remembered their little talk last night when he first woke up. Naruto nodded as he remembered that he did promise her that. "That's right. I did," and Naruto doesn't go back on his word. He thought seriously as he figured he was stuck with Makoto now, not that it was a bad thing. She was the only one that cared about him after all, not even the Hokage or the Ichirakus did this much for him. He blinked as they were no longer outside and they were now inside a house. He recognized it as the one house she had brought him to before. "How'd we get here?" he asked, confused. Could she do the thing that Gigi and the Umbu did? "It's called Shunshin," Naruto-kun, answered Makoto, reluctantly letting go of him. It lets its user to travel to a nearby destination at a high speed, almost like we just popped up here. It's useless in a fight though, you can tell when someone will arrive with it, and it takes a second for it to activate, which would give your enemy a chance to kill you. Are you interested in being a shinobi? She asked, wondering if he was taking shinobi classes to begin with, along with the regular civilian classes. She had taken him to shinobi stores originally to get some equipment and durable clothing so she could teach him to defend himself. Naruto shook his head as he shrugged, not really, but I didn't have much choice in the matter. Gigi just came one day and told me he put me in the academy for the ninja classes. He's a Jinchuriki. It's obvious why I was forced into the classes, but no one uses my little spiral as a weapon. I hope the Hokage likes disappointment, thought Makoto calmly, making a mental note to use the Hokage's method against him. Well, there are jutsu that can be useful, even if not used in battle. There's Fuin jutsu, which has been in decline for decades. Used correctly, it could destroy even the strongest shinobi in a matter of seconds. Really? Said Naruto, amazed that there was something like that, but they never talked about it at the academy. If it's so strong, why is it in decline? He asked curiously, wondering why it would go away if it was so strong. It should be something others should be learning if it was so strong. Makoto smiled as she sat on the bed in the room and patted the spot next to her, and Naruto sat next to her a moment later. It's hard to learn Fuin jutsu, Naruto-kun. Most people can only learn a few bits of it to create standard seals, like the ones for an explosive note, and well-known seals like it. Very few have come to be a Fuin jutsu master, even though some claim to be after she went silent, unsure of whether or not to tell him what happened to Uzumaki and his clan. After what? Questioned Naruto curiously as Makoto looked slightly bothered as she went quiet. Makoto sighed. I won't hide it. Naruto-kun should know, and if I hide it, and he learns about it, he'll be angry at me, and might not want to stay with me. I can't have that, she thought, not liking the idea of him leaving her. After 3 of the 5 great hidden villages destroyed Uzumaki and the Uzumaki clan, she stated seriously, closing her eyes and listening to silence. What? Questioned Naruto, not sure if he heard her correctly. He had a clan? But they were all killed. Makoto opened her eyes, staring at the floor, not wanting to look at the likely shocked, maybe crestfallen Naruto, and replied, the Uzumaki clan lived in Uzumaki. They were considered the masters of Fuin jutsu. Even today their seals on Yuzu Kuni are still powering their outer defenses. A large circle of whirlpools protecting Yuzu Kuni. They are the only ones who have been able to create the most seals. They were also excellent shinobi, which caused 3 of the 5 great hidden villages to fear them, and in the last shinobi war, they allied with each other, destroyed it, and wiped the clan out. But I'm an Uzumaki, could there be others like me? Questioned Naruto, wondering if his clan was still around or if he was the last one. Makoto shrugged as she didn't know if there were other Uzumaki alive. I don't know, Naruto-kun. If there are others, they're hiding and they don't want to be found, she said truthfully, as that was what most clans did if they were attacked and nearly wiped out. They went into hiding for decades before considering to reappear again. I have a couple things to do in the Uchiha district, Naruto-kun. You can consider this place your home for as long as you like, alright? I'll be back in a couple hours, but don't wait up if you don't want to. You need your rest, she said, as she didn't want him risking his health over her in a trivial matter. Okay, Miko-chan, and thank you for telling me I had a clan, replied Naruto, grateful to Makoto for having told him about it. He wasn't simply a cast-out orphan. He had a clan, a strong one that caused other shinobi to fear it. He was going to do his clan proud. He wanted to learn the ways of his clan, and from what she said, he should probably start in Fuin jutsu since his clan was so skilled in it. You're welcome, Naruto-kun. And it's only fair that you should know your own family, stated Makoto, really not wanting to leave to continue her plans. She wanted to hug him, kiss him, and hold him as they fell asleep, but she had obstacles to remove and they wouldn't remove themselves. But don't tell anyone you know about it, okay? I don't know why, but it's obvious no one wanted you to know. Right, replied Naruto, agreeing with her in an instant. He didn't doubt her words. Even the Hokage had lied to him about him having a clan or any kind of family, saying numerous times that he didn't know of Naruto's family, and if the Hokage lied to him, then everyone else probably was lying to him as well, everyone but Makoto. She was the only kind person who cared for him and liked him. Good, I'll be back in a bit, alright, she said, and Naruto nodded and she left, returning to the Uchiha district. X. Uchiha District. Makoto yawned as she opened the door to her home, though she didn't consider it her home any longer given that she couldn't be with her Naruto here. She spent an hour spreading news around the district that she was pregnant, and in a month she was going to hold a celebration, inviting the entire clan to it. Those who didn't go to it, well, it wouldn't be a problem. Her pregnancy was a lie, of course. Naruto-kun was too young and she never allowed Fugaku or another man to touch her, ever again. She walked inside and headed toward the basement where all of the old clan things were stored at, most of which only she could access, as she never altered the seal to accommodate her husband or her children to the more older parts. "We need to talk," came the voice of her husband, causing Makoto to turn around and see the usual glaring face of Fugaku. "Sasuke came home earlier today and said you punched him and threatened him, then you left with the demon brat. Do you think my warning this morning was a joke? Kill him. Make him suffer and bleed," seethed Makoto mentally as she was a hair trigger away from ripping the man apart. He Naruto even think could take her away from her little spiral? The next moment Fugaku slapped Makoto, causing a red mark on her cheek to appear, but she let him do it. She had wanted to see if he'd actually go through with it or stop part way. Now she knew what to do with him, the clan, even her children. Makoto laughed lifelessly as her hand reached up to feel her cheek. "You fool," stated Makoto icily as she stared at Fugaku. "Just die," she added as she stabbed Fugaku in the heart with a kunai. As much as she wanted to torture and hear him scream out in pain, she had other things to do and an entire clan to eventually deal with, and she didn't feel like giving them any help. "Why you be bitch," growled Fugaku, having grabbed a hold of Makoto's hand, holding the kunai, despite arriving too late to stop it. Makoto scoffed at the insult. Leave it to her now former husband to come up with the most bland of insults when dying. So she decided to let him die with a little present and replied, "Bitch? I think you mean Uzumaki Makoto, future wife to my wonderful little spiral. Don't worry though, the Uchiha clan will continue as a slave clan to the Uzumaki." Before he could speak again, she slit his throat using a kunai in her other hand, showering her in blood and his face frozen in a shocked expression. "Naruto-kun will be so happy when I tell him," muttered Makoto, staring in the dead eyes of her former husband. Now she'd take over the clan and have a much easier time fulfilling her plans. The Hokage couldn't even do anything to her. She was the legitimate head of the clan and she wouldn't allow him to interfere. End of story. If he tried, he loses his position afterward due to it being a law, and if there was one thing that people liked, it was their position. Especially when he had no precedents to interfere, given that the Hyuga clan often killed their own members with their slave seal. Makoto let go of the kunai, letting the one in her hand clang against the floor and the other left in Fugaku. She wasn't even going to bother cleaning up the mess. She'd order someone to do it for her later. She had old scrolls and items to go through as she originally planned. Makoto had spent a good few hours looking through the ancient scrolls and even some old-looking crap, and she learned a few things. The Uchiha clan were idiots. She would have been surprised if she didn't know already, but with how many scrolls she found, it was hard to prove otherwise. The majority of the scrolls were old messages between the Senju and the Uchiha. Apparently important enough to save, but otherwise useless, and they were boring messages, but messages of an affair between Madara and Senju Mito was amusing nonetheless to her, though it may not have been a fair, but with how the Uchiha hated the Senju, it may as well have been. The second thing she learned was the clan didn't know how to organize shit. It's like they just tossed everything down here and said screw it, then left. It made her task a lot harder than it should have been. It also took longer, as she decided to organize it while looking through it in case she had to come looking through it again, and the last thing she learned was what she originally came looking for. Something to help her and her Naruto-kun, and that something was a set of seals or something like it. The scroll was half worn out and looked like it went through hell, but what she gathered from what was left of and in the scroll is that it explained the use of the seals and that, when applied to various points in an area and onto a person, her in this instance, she could activate the seals and cause anyone to lose the will to fight. Though how much chakra it would drain from her was something that the scroll didn't say. It explained why the scroll looked like hell. The Uchiha clan was more for war and fighting than peace, and whoever found it before attempted to destroy it. "I got what I wanted," she muttered, pocketing the scroll and heading out of the basement. It took her a few minutes to lock the seals and climb the stairs up. When she arrived back at the entrance, she found her eldest son checking the body of Fugaku. "If you're going to poke and prod it, do me a favor and get rid of it, Sochi," she said, seeing as he was volunteering to play with the corpse. What happened here? Why is Otosama dead, and why are you covered in blood? Asked Itachi calmly, and if she didn't know better she would have assumed that he had the same problem she did when it came to feeling anything, but she saw otherwise throughout the years. Her son was playing stupid, something with which did not suit him as he didn't play it well enough. Makoto shook her head and replied, "We both know you are not that stupid, Itachi. You can connect the dots and be accurately correct in that I killed him. As the original heiress, it's in my power to take over if I deem it necessary. I did, he didn't. That's the end result of our little spat. So get rid of the body and let the elders know there's going to be a meeting in the morning, and if they don't come, there's going to be consequences." She turned and walked through a doorway, heading to her personal bathroom to take a shower, change her clothes, then return to her little spiral. The next day morning, Makoto stretched her arms as she walked into the courtyard of the meeting house. It was an odd thing to have, but the uchiha of the past decided to have one specific place to have their meeting, so as not give anyone an advantage one could have in their own home. Once she passed the opening gate, she looked to her left, hearing movement, and saw a clansman rushing her and trying to punch her. Makoto dodged the punch, grabbed him by the wrist, moving his arm up and out of the way before slamming her palm into his chest, sending him back onto the ground. Another charged 4 clansmen attacked her immediately afterward. The first she merely spun around him before kicking him in the ass, sending him face first into the dirt. The next 2 tried using katana, but they weren't skilled in their use, which wasn't very surprising. Not a lot of uchiha knew how to use a katana very well, much less be skilled in the use of one. Makoto easily dodged their attacks before kicking the blades out of their hands, which only happened because of their lack of grip. "Are you done?" "Because I am," stated Makoto, staring them uninterested, seeing this entire thing for what it was, a farce. The only person with any noteworthy skills in fighting was her eldest son and her. At best, the Uchiha clan were only fit for the role they had now, to run the police force. Whether or not the reason they didn't use jutsu against her was a moot point, and would have had the same result, or a slightly bloodier result. Most likely the latter. Makoto turned her head as she heard someone clicking their tongue, and saw it was one of the elders, Teru, an old fossil who was an elder when her father was head of the clan. He went to speak but couldn't, and soon found a kunai lodged in his own throat. "The rantings of an up-jumped zealot make for tedious listening," stated Makoto, having no desire to listen to the elder man rant and rave about her killing Fugaku, taking over the clan, or his age-old statement that women should run the clan, or a number of other things. She looked around and saw the other elders standing nearby, shocked and wary of what had happened. Makoto stared at them. "I am taking my position as head of the clan, as is my right as the original heiress. I advise that you heed Teru's lesson well. When the weak court death, they find it," she added coldly before turning heel and heading out of the courtyard. "Fugaku's funeral will be held in 1 month, she stated before crossing the entrance and leaving. 2 hours later. Naruto smiled as he was loving where he was at for the moment. He had skipped out on the academy lessons, and before Iruka-sensei could grab him, Makoto did, and then she told Iruka-sensei to leave him alone and go away, and the Chunin did so, though Iruka-sensei didn't look happy about it. And now he in a training grounds with Makoto, and she was teaching him different things. She had even gone and bought him a few books on sealing from one of the visiting merchants. They'd be a decent starting point for him, but he didn't expect much out of the books if he had to be honest. But the parts he enjoyed the most was where she'd hug him, tell him he was going good, and do things that no one's ever done with him. Makoto was even teaching him jutsu, not very super powerful jutsu, but a few that she knew he could handle, though she said they'd have to work on his chakra control before she would teach him anything stronger. She had also said that she didn't know a lot of jutsu as she didn't use them, but she'd be happy to help him with any he tried to learn on his own, or if he wanted to learn anything else she knew. "Naruto-kun, let's take a break," said Makoto, holding a basket she had gotten from somewhere. She didn't have it earlier, and he didn't see it until now, so he wasn't sure where it had come from. Naruto shrugged. He'd just mark it as one of his Miko-chan's awesome abilities. "Okay," replied Naruto, running over to her and sitting down near her, wondering what was in the basket. "It's not much, but I made some onigiri and some sandwiches," chimed Makoto, bringing out said objects and placing them on the blanket she laid out earlier. She narrowed her eyes and frowned as she saw the telltale signs of Shunshin, and within a second an umbu popped out of nowhere. "What is it?" she asked and demanded at the same time. "The Hokage wants you in his office," stated the Umbu in a monotone voice, causing Mikoto's displeasure to increase. Makoto growled in her throat for a moment before looking at Naruto. "You continue, Naruto-kun. I'll be right back after dealing with the Hokage, alright?" she said kindly, smiling at the blonde, happy to see that her little spiral was enjoying their time together. Naruto nodded and replied, "Alright. Tell Gigi I said hi." Makoto nodded before disappearing, and the Umbu shortly after her, and now Naruto had the hard choice. Which to eat first, a rice ball or a sandwich? Hokage's office. Makoto arrived in the Hokage's office, seeing the elderly man sitting behind his desk, Umbu hiding or doing their best to hide in various locations, and her. "You called Hokage-sama?" she asked politely to the elderly man. She didn't like him. He was interrupting her time with her Naruto. That was unacceptable. Not to mention he was allowing harm to her spiral as well as other things to happen, even going so far as to manipulate Naruto as well. "You realize you're being charged with murder, correct? For the murder of Uchiha Fugaku, your husband, and of Uchiha Teru," said the Hokage calmly, and Makoto could feel the Umbu in the room tense once the sentence was spoken. Makoto stared at him with no expression on her face. Apparently the Hokage was not as smart as she gave him credit for. She would not be making that mistake again, and you're interfering with a clan matter, Sarutobi. Are you prepared to surrender your position as Hokage over something this small and pathetic? What happens within the Uchiha clan is a clan matter, and will be handled as such. I do not give you permission to interfere. If you attempt to interfere, I and the clan will be leaving Konoha," stated Makoto icily, as she had no intention of cowing to the man's position or any potential threats he probably had in mind. "If you're worried about the coup, you shouldn't be. It will not be happening, and if you use another clan member of mine, especially my son, again, I'm going to come into this office and neuter you with one of my poisoned kunai. Then I'll slit your throat before shoving your ball sack into your mouth and leaving you to die, choking on your own balls. Now I have a little meeting to continue," she added before disappearing via Shunshin again. "Well, that brings back memories," said Hiruzen, having minor flashbacks of the raven-haired matriarch when she had used to report on her missions. The insults and threats were not new, nor was the fact that he didn't say much. It also reminded him why he didn't waste time agreeing to her retirement. He had a feeling that council meetings were going to be a headache for a while at least, but on the bright side, the coup was dealt with, though he'd ask Itachi to watch for a while just to be sure. He'd suffer through Mikoto's usual no-bullshit way of talking if meant that the Uchiha clan's coup was over and only a handful of lives ended to do it. It was far better than the alternative. 1 month later. Naruto read through a book about seals, one of the many that Makoto had gone and bought for him to read since he was interested in his clan's specialty with Fuinjutsu. He'd take a break every few hours to work on chakra control, since she said that it was best to get the hardest and longest part of chakra control over with now than later. He didn't really go to the academy any longer. Miko-chan usually stayed with him in the house or left a Kage Bunshin with him if she had to do something elsewhere. Naruto-kun what would think about going somewhere else and living there for a while? Asked Makoto idly as she continued preparing lunch. The thought had been in her mind throughout the last month and had been growing. The more she was around her little spiral, the more she saw how Konoha viewed and treated him. The council was out to kill him, if not turn him into a weapon. Something she learned during the past couple meetings within the month, and something her former husband agreed with if she went by the whining in the room. The villagers she had known about since the first day spent with him and the Hokage was no better than any of them, in her opinion. Konoha was not worthy of her little spiral, not in the least. So she had been teasing with the thought of leaving the village with him to go somewhere else, anywhere else. Preferably without a shinobi village, given they treat Naruto the same way and they'd keep her away from her little spiral. No, she had a few places in mind without shinobi of any sort. Whether or not her little spiral wanted to leave was the biggest question. The Hokage said it wasn't safe outside Konoha and that people would treat me worse out there, said Naruto, remembering what the Sandaime had told him. So he never really ventured far from the village and hunted near its walls when he had to. Makoto frowned when the blonde brought up the Hokage. Her little spiral obviously still believed some of the lies from the old fool. Naruto-kun, we've been over this a few times. The Hokage is lying to you. Yes, there are things outside Konoha that are dangerous, but being in Konoha is just as dangerous for you and me as it would be out in the world. However, there are more good things out in the world than staying in this place, and it's safer in some cases. Besides, I think you'd love to see new places, meet new people, and maybe learn new jutsu. We could even try getting to use a no Kuni, and you can visit the place where your clan lived. Maybe we could find something too. Yes, she was manipulating him in her own way, using his fixation on his clan against him. But unlike the Hokage and the others, her manipulation in no way, shape or form would cause her little spiral harm in the present or the future. Not to mention that Naruto was smarter than he liked to let on to people. He had been able to commit suicide multiple times in likely public places and would have succeeded if not for some random string of fate to appear and ruin his suicidal plans each and every time. I know he lied to me, but not everything was a lie, right? Asked Naruto, not believing that everything told to him was a lie. No one could do that kind of thing, right? Even small things that the Hokage told had to have some truth to them at the very least. Makoto sighed quietly for a moment, pausing in her task to walk over to him from behind and gently hug him. You're such a sweet little boy. But there are people like that, Naruto-kun. There are people in the world, in Konoha, that will pretend to be your best friend, or love you only to stab you in the back or kill you. The Hokage made his choice, my little spiral, she said gently as she whispered into his ears. He lied to you about your clan, and if he's going to lie to you about your family, then I would not put it past him to lie about all kinds of things. Remember, Naruto-kun. He always had a choice. As did every person in the village who has threatened or hurt you. They always had a choice. You are not the Kyuubi, and even if you were, the Kyuubi did not create the violence in the villagers or the lies spewing from people. The Kyuubi, however, did not have a choice in the matter when it was sealed within you. It was no longer a secret to the blonde of the reason why the village hated him, or why the Hokage put him in shinobi classes. No, Makoto had told him everything that the Hokage had ordered to be a village secret under punishment of death. Something of which only enforced Naruto's outlook on her, further cementing her into his life, something she was happy about. Makoto also knew that she should not cause him to be afraid of the kitsune or be spiteful toward it. From what she understood from Kushina being a Jinchuriki, the relationship was a symbiotic one if you didn't account Kushina's ability to pin it to a molten ball and stake it. That was something she did not expect from the friendly redhead. While her little spiral still had some feelings toward the Hokage, they were minuscule, and her little spiral was a forgiving person, though she was going to be correcting that little problem. As it was right now, he didn't even call the old man by his affectionate nickname anymore. She knew just how to do it too. Well, I guess I'd like to go see other places if it's safe like you say it is, said Naruto, wondering what the outside world was like. His Miko-chan never lied to him and even told him things which could get her killed, and he knew she was telling the truth as she had helped him visit his tenant to give him proof. Needless to say, his tenant was not a happy kitsune, but for some reason seemed amused, and he didn't understand why. The kitsune had told him to listen to his Miko-chan before kicking him out and laughing. Makoto smiled, kissed Naruto on his whiskered cheek before releasing him and replied, "It's not safe, Naruto-kun. Nowhere in the world is safe, but there won't be anything that we can't handle. Now I'm going to leave behind a clone. She'll finish making lunch while I deal with a clan matter that I have to do in person. In the meantime, I'd like you to prepare for a trip. My clone will help you too, and don't get loving with her or she'll get nothing done." That was the thing with her Kagebunshin. They had little restraint whenever Naruto showed a bit of affection to them. She wasn't bothered by it too much, but it caused her clones not to finish what she told them to do. The memories were a great trade-off though, many of her fondest if she admitted it. "Okay," replied Naruto happily as he got off his chair and went through the room to look for things he wanted to bring with him. Makoto smiled as she summoned a clone, then left to deal with her former husband's funeral and the rest of her plan. Makoto looked at the clan that gathered. It wasn't the entire clan, sadly. Itachi was annoyingly away on a mission. A couple other clansmen were much the same, with another in the hospital, and not likely to be leaving it any time soon after their failed mission. Her plan would have loose ends, but not enough loose ends to cause significant problems. It was acceptable to her standards as she couldn't account for every tiny incident that could happen in the world, and dealing with them would cause issues, and those issues would end with her being unable to be with her Naruto-kun. "Makoto-sama, has the Hokage or the Konoha Council discovered our missing clansmen?" asked Akio, another Uchiha elder, one of the more tame elders and usually kept quiet during meetings. Makoto shook her head, but inwardly she smirked. "I'm afraid not, Akio-san. While the council has been quite helpful with our search, the Hokage has deemed it a waste of manpower to continue to look for those missing after 2 weeks. Once the funeral is over, I'll have our clan continue to keep looking within and without Konoha, she answered seriously, though she already knew where the missing clansmen were at. She had them. To put it simply, she found 6 uchiha in the roster that she could mold and manipulate into serving her and her little spiral. The beginning of Uzumaki uchiha slaves, to do with as he pleased, and it had been particularly easy to do it. Once she took them and put customized slave collars on them she bought off the black market, they were very willing into serving her, and soon, her little spiral. To regular people the collar would simply look like a black lace choker, which fit perfectly given she solely picked a couple young women and teenage girls and no men. The last thing she wanted was a male uchiha among the slaves to intrude on her little spiral's future property, or end up like most of the men in their clan and go completely nuts with their clan's supposed curse of hatred. Something of which the women in the clan did not seem to ever be afflicted with. The 6 of them, including a few of her clones, were well outside Konoha, in a remote safe house not in the uchiha books any longer, being conditioned and trained until ready. Makoto would see her Naruto-kun safe and she'd use the materials her clan provided for her to do it. Makoto continued to watch in silence as the funeral continued. Each person had a flower that she prepared beforehand and would set it onto Fugaku's casket. What they didn't know is that on every flower, even the one in her own hands, was a poison. Colorless, odorless, tasteless. Nothing to give away that it was there, and easily transferable into victims. The same poison she used during the Third Shinobi War, to which she still had a small stockpile of since then, and even over time it did not lose its potency. She had a guinea pig, after all. "Is your son still feeling ill?" questioned Akio, not seeing the head of the clan's youngest son at the funeral, and no one had for some time given. Makoto had explained that he had gotten the flu and could barely get out of bed. Makoto nodded and replied, "Yes, but he's getting better. He'll be up and about in a few days, maybe a week at the most." It was a lie, a blatant lie that no one would find out any time soon. At least no one in her clan. Her youngest son, Sasuke, was dead. He had fulfilled his purpose as her guinea pig to test out her poisons and which ones would work the best. Her son deserved it. He dared badmouth and insult her little spiral. Not to mention she had heard him training one day about beating up the dobe who fooled his mother, and Makoto did not take threats to her Naruto kindly. Missing clansmen, odd deaths, you'd think that people would get suspicious, thought Makoto as she found the normalcy of the Uchiha clan and Konoha in general to be as close to arrogance if she had to pick a word. It was as if they thought those missing would just pop up and the murderer be found soon. If the Hokage at any point was troubled, he didn't show it, much less voice it. But she wasn't too carefree to know that the Sandaime would just let things continue. She had a feeling that he had Umbu watching her clan, possibly even her activities, not that she allowed anyone to follow her. Shunshin was useful in that way. "It's about time," muttered Makoto, seeing people having a difficult time standing, a lot of the elder clan members already falling over, those trying to help them soon doing the same. She looked to her side and saw Akio's eyes had glazed over, a very small bit of white foam appearing out of his mouth. She pushed him, barely putting any effort or force into it, and he toppled over lifelessly. She dropped the poisoned flower she was holding and started her way out of the clan graveyard. The IWA ninja put a bit more resistance than my kinsmen. Well, they made more noise at the very least. Now to convince me little spiral that being in this village, this cesspool that insults, threatens, and treats him horribly is the worst thing possible. She created several Kage Bunshin and had them henge into various Umbu that she had seen throughout the village and the Third Shinobi War, then had one final clone henge into the Sandaime. "Now let's make this believable for my little spiral," said Makoto as she pulled out one of her regular, non-poisoned kunai, then stabbed herself in the shoulder, one time in each of her arms, once in her left leg, then ended it by stabbing herself in the chest, in an area free from any vital organs but would give the desired effect she wanted. "Now, time to go get Naruto-kun," she added as she headed toward the safe house with Naruto in it, her henge clones chasing after her. If the real Hokage or Umbu popped up, it would be even better for her, and fortunately it was in the middle of the day, the best time to attract attention. Safe house. Naruto sat his plate in the sink as Makoto's clone popped, causing him to look at its former spot and wonder what happened to it. "Usually they don't poof unless Miko-chan whacks one of them," he muttered as he walked over to where the clone had been standing but didn't find the reason it disappeared. "And I thought it might have stepped on a thumbtack or something," he added before shrugging. He knew Kage Bunshin were fragile, as Makoto explained the main flaw with the jutsu when she was telling him about a bunch of jutsu. It couldn't take so much as a slap before popping like a balloon. He jumped at the door, slammed open, and injured, bleeding Makoto along with it. "Miko-chan!" shouted Naruto, rushing over to her, panicking and trying to get the bleeding to stop, but didn't know how. What happened?" he asked and half-shouted at the same time. "The Hokage had his ninja attack the Uchiha clan. I barely escaped. We need to get out of here," answered Makoto, dragging herself into the safe house. "We have a few minutes before they catch up. I need you to bring over that white box up there marked first aid, Naruto-kun." He did the second she said so and came back immediately with it. Makoto smiled gently before continuing, "Then I need you to get the things you packed and get ready to leave while I patch myself up enough to travel." "But I can talk to Gigi, get him to leave you alone. I mean, whatever he attacked your clan about, you didn't do anything wrong," stated Naruto, wanting to try and get his grandfather figure to leave his Miko-chan alone. "She didn't do anything, she was the best person in the village. Naruto-kun, he had his ninja killing the old and even children when he ordered the attack. I don't want you to get hurt, my little spiral," said Makoto as she slowly bandaged her self-inflicted wounds. She wouldn't die from them, but they hurt like hell nonetheless, though she'd suffer any form of pain to be with Naruto with no one able to separate them. "The Hokage may take you away, seal your memories, or even get rid of you." "No, I won't let him," stated Naruto angrily as his normal ocean blue eyes shifted to red and slitted. "I won't let him take you away from me. I won't let him or anyone else hurt you." No one was going to take away his precious person, the kindest person he'd ever met, and cared for him. He wasn't going to let her get hurt, and then he wanted to kill whoever hurt her. "Naruto, relax, it's okay," whispered Makoto, reaching over to him and gently brushing her hand against his cheek. "Not that I think you won't try, but my entire clan couldn't fight the Hokage and his ninja. If they couldn't do it, Naruto-kun, you can't either. We just need to leave and live somewhere away from them until we get strong enough to protect ourselves. Now I've patched myself up mostly, so grab your things, then let's try and get a head start. I know a place where a few of my clan are living outside of Konoha. We can head there." Naruto's eyes shifted back to blue as he paused for a moment before nodding and grabbing the things he had originally packed for their trip, and now being used for running away from these assholes who wanted to hurt his Miko-chan and take her away from him. "Ready?" he said, walking back over to her. "Okay, now I know you can outrun Umbu, but try to stay slow enough that I can keep up, alright?" replied Makoto, knowing how quick he ran and there was no way she was keeping with him. "I'll follow you, Miko-chan," stated Naruto somewhat sheepishly as he had intended to run full burst once outside. "So anything?" questioned Hiruzen, looking at Shikaku, his Umbu commander and the person whom he put in charge of the Uchiha massacre, hunting down Makoto and looking for Naruto, of which was likely to be with the Uchiha matriarch. "The poison used is the same Makoto used in the Third Shinobi War. We had her register it during the conflict due to its quick lethality, labeling it forbidden as she refused making any form of antidote or letting any medic ninja to study it," stated Shikaku, having very little information altogether but decided to give the Sandaime the information they did have. "Though since she isn't lying face first in the dirt, I have to conclude that she did manage to make an antidote, or somehow made herself immune to the poison. We lost 2 Umbu and a medic ninja during the cleanup due to the poison as well, and now we've simply cordoned off the compound to prevent any further deaths since we don't know what's poisoned." "What about her location, Naruto's? Have you even found the missing Uchiha members, including Makoto's son Sasuke?" asked Hiruzen, knowing how deadly their Velvet Killer's poison was. There was a reason everyone feared being served anything by her or simply being near her. You never knew if you were about to die or not, and you wouldn't know until you were already in the grave. Makoto's skills sadly still surpass our hunter ninjas, disappointing that she never joined Umbu. They lost the trail hours ago and returned 20 minutes ago. Being a housewife has done little to her skill set. A few shopkeepers and villagers reported Naruto being with her almost constantly throughout the last month, happy and ecstatic, and not his usual fake happiness that we both know is a facade. "So I imagine he's with her," stated Shikaku seriously, bringing the bad news to light, "and it was going to get worse. As for her youngest son, we found him before we cordoned off the compound. He's been dead for at least a week. His was one of the bodies we took out of the compound. Numerous poisons were in his body. If anything, Makoto makes her poisons to last even well after death. I hope you quarantined the boy's body. One of her poisons spreads on rotted flesh to infect those who touch it," advised Hiruzen, having seen that particular poison in person once and did not need, nor want to see it again. "If anything, Makoto knew how to use poisons in the most effective manner, more than Akasuna knows Sasori, and that made her difficult to deal with even in the most simple of ways. It is, but I'll inform those who touched his body to get themselves checked out immediately, if they're not dead already, replied Shikaka, making a mental note to do that as soon as he left. Anything else, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen sighed and said, send out Umbu to find Jiraiya. We'll need his spy network, and have Umbu spread out to see if they can find anything about Makoto or Naruto in the meantime. Send Itachi in? Shikaka grimaced and replied, I'd like to, but he has left the village to hunt down his mother, and I doubt he'll return for at least a few more days. He's taken Sasuke's death quite hard. I see when he returns, send him to me, stated the Sandaime, sighing as he felt his age now more than ever. X. Unknown location, Uchiha safe house. Naruto-kun, these ladies are what's left of the Uchiha clan, except for me, of course, said Makoto, showing the tired blonde his future slaves or whatever he wanted to call them. They'll do what you want, okay. She broke them in easily enough, though that was more from living in the Uchiha clan more so than her own skills. Allowing women to not be submissive in the clan was not part of the clan ideal from the elder's standpoint, which had originally ended up with her marrying Fugaku. Okay, replied Naruto, not really understanding what she meant by that. But if they weren't going to yell, hit or do anything mean to him, then he'd like them. There were 3 women, a teenage girl and 2 girls his age. They were all dressed like Makoto, a black shirt and pants, though they had a girly thing around their necks. They had the trademark dark hair that he'd seen with Uchiha clan members, as well as dark eyes. The only big difference was their faces and hairstyles. I wonder if my clan had the same kind of traits, he thought, idly wondering about for a moment before shuddering at the thought. It would be creepy if everyone looked similar to each other and looked like a clone. Are we resting here? He asked curiously. He wanted to take a nap. Yes, we'll be here for a few days to rest, and so I can let my wounds heal a bit. Don't worry about anyone finding us, Naruto-kun. We're in a place that everyone's forgotten about. Miki, help Naruto-kun, ordered Makoto as she sat down in a chair and started checking over her bandages. Hi, Makoto-sama. Come along, Naruto-sama, let's have you rest, said one of the women. This one had her hair in a ponytail and smiling gently at him. Naruto, replied Naruto simply, not liking the honorific she gave him. I don't like honorifics. Miki nodded. Alright, Naruto. Follow me please, she said kindly before gently ushering him down the hallway. 1 week later. Naruto frowned as he stared at the back of the head of one of the 2 girls his age. Asaya, the one that would not say anything to him, to the others, not even Makoto. It annoyed him to no end, though he couldn't get mad at her. Makoto had explained to him that she never spoke, not even in the clan, but she did understand them. Another reason he couldn't get mad at her was because whatever anger or annoyance he felt toward her vanished whenever he heard her humming. At the very least, she had a nice voice when it came to humming. They were in Nami no Kuni now, since Makoto knew there was no shinobi village or clan there, and it was the safest place close to Yuzu no Kuni, since it would be the last place the Hokage looked for them, or he'd never look for them here. Shouldn't there be guards or something? Asked Naruto, having expected to see samurai, or hired shinobi protecting the town they were in, or heck, even a police force maybe. Well, so long as they weren't like Konoha's police, he'd prefer not to have those kind of police around. Makoto looked around and didn't see anything of the sort either, but shrugged. Then an idea came to her mind. The daimyo here has been killed or removed. There's no solid information on it. The ruler, and I use the term very loosely, Naruto, is Gato of the Gato Corporation. While on one side it is an actual business, he also employs slavery, drugs, and other things some people would consider illegal. Naruto-sama, would you find it pleasing if we removed this Gato and instead you ruled over the island? I'm sure you'd be far better than this man who, as we can see, has brought nothing but ruin here, suggested Hoshi, looking down at her small master. She honestly cared little for Makoto. Admittedly, she feared the Uchiha matriarch, but she had noticed that Makoto had a soft spot for the boy. So, that brought her to the conclusion that if she stayed in the boy's good graces, Makoto would leave her alone, not to mention whatever bonuses that would come from it. The blonde was kind as well, so it was already a good bonus. Can we? I don't know how to fight, Miko-chan's hurt, so I don't know. It'd be the right thing to do if he's being a jerk and doing all those things, questioned Naruto, unsure if it would even work even if he wanted to help these people. Miko-chan and the other Uchiha women took priority for him. He wouldn't let people close to him get hurt if he could prevent it. Naruto, said Makoto gently as she looked at the blonde, getting his attention as she knelt down to his level, bringing her face to his. Just say what you want to do and I'll see it done. You want ramen for dinner? Done. You want to be trained as a ninja? Done. If you want a country to call your own, then it will be done, Naruto-kun, she added before kissing the blonde. You don't need to worry about this country, Naruto-kun. It's a civilian man who is making this mess. It won't be hard to stop him. We'll find you some adorable little servants too. Well, if you think it'll go fine, then I guess we should help, replied Naruto, seeing that it'd be the best thing to do. He'd admit he found Makoto being hooked on finding him servants to be odd, to say the least, but he didn't have any real opinion on it. Hoshi and Miki were great servants, as Makoto had told him of their job, and if anyone wanted to do same willingly, he wasn't going to argue. Not to mention, he liked the island on a personal level. It was completely different than Konoha, which was surrounded by trees on 3 sides and a mountain right next to it. The ruin-like conditions were around the same as the slums in Konoha, so it wasn't an improvement in that area, but hey, he was too used to it. The next day. Fufufu, see Naru. It went just fine, chimed Makoto, walking into the dilapidated manor dragging a small corpse behind her, followed by a bloodied but fine Hoshi and Miki, who also sported some metal bits of armor they got from, well, probably places he could guess, but preferred to leave blank. The manor they had taken for their own. It was run down and obvious signs of destruction were around it, as if Gato and his hired thugs had actively decided to destroy the once well-built manor and its surroundings as a show of disrespect to the entire country. The only thing more or less in pristine condition were the stone walls around the manor, and its environs, so long as you didn't take the gate into that consideration. It had rotted after being destroyed by some means, though the 2 muscled potato heads they had to skip around before actually getting to Gato probably did it with their hammers. Makoto shrugged at the thought. They had strength, but for Kunoichi, it was like killing a baby. Simple. Why are you dragging a body around? Asked Naruto curiously, wondering why she was doing that. He didn't have any complaint about it. It wouldn't ruin the floor or anything given the place was trashed already, but still. Hang him up somewhere for everyone to see as proof of your I guess legitimacy would be wrong, so we'll say it's proof of your power, Naruto-kun, proffered Makoto, unsure how to exactly depict the act. Little details, so don't worry about it too much. There's presents too, she added cheerfully, as she had found the information on the miniature man to be good. The man did deal in slaves. Primarily those of the slave kind. Who'd have imagined that she found a couple dozen women and men, but she had those killed. She had no use for any male other than Naruto, and she'd not allow competition or any kind of sullying off her Naruto's toys. Presents? Muttered Naruto, not really sure he'd like any presents she brought from wherever Gato had been and what Miko-chan had done. He wasn't stupid. She, Hoshi and Miki went and killed Gato and most, if not all, of his underlings. The kind of presents she could bring, though, is only a handful and none he could think of being happy to receive. Hi. The information on Gato was correct. We have some cute little servants, around 2 dozen, stated Hoshi, deciding to use Makoto's moniker for the broken female slaves that they let live. They're kind of useless for everything, but one particular thing, so it'll take time to fix them, and even then, not completely. They're kind of clingy though. I think you'd like them, she added, though mostly she'd personally just find it amusing to see the little 8-year-old being clung to by 1 or 2 crazed, broken women. The kids are showing them around and stuff. Okay, so what now? He asked, honestly not knowing what to do next, mostly due to this not being his idea, and he was just happy to be around people who didn't yell at him and Makoto. Well, we shouldn't have any big problems except for Konoha, who are going to hear about Gato being killed off mysteriously and come to look and question people, said Hoshi, shrugging as she spoke. Now that she considered the after effect of their actions, perhaps it wasn't the best idea. This is an island, said Naruto, simply seeing the solution to be very, very simple to him. You killed Gato, so I'm sure if asked the people not to spread the news of his death, or that if they do, they tell people other hidden village shinobi did it, or if rogue ninja did it. It would probably be something to ignore. I mean, I saw thugs stab their own boss in the slums when he didn't pay them. Why can't the same happen here? Just make sure people say it that way and who'd know the difference. Both Miki and Hoshi stared at him in shock and surprise. Neither of them had considered that, and an 8-year-old had. They didn't know whether to be impressed or ashamed. Makoto was simply smiling at her Naruto-kun's intelligence. He wasn't a usual 8-year-old, he had to be given he had grown up in the slums, could outrun and outwit Umbu as well as pull pranks on various highly skilled jounin. Someone stupid could do none of those. She had the same idea as Naruto, but he brought up it first, and she was more than willing to give praise to the adorable blonde. It also gave her extra reasons to hug and love on him, not that she needed any, but this way it would solve any complaints if they popped up. He had a large amount of money in the building and hideaway he was using, so we can rebuild the castle and aid the people on the island, which will probably take our takeover of the island from Gato better than they had with Gato. Not to mention, it'll shut them up about the real truth instead of the nice lie you gave us, Naruto, said Mickey politely. Once we make sure those we brought are in good condition we'll go and do all that. If you'll excuse us, Naruto, she added, bowing slightly before she and Hoshi left with Gato's corpse. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Sabaku Ookami for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.